Cliff. Second? Second. Thank you, Harry. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the minutes from July and August, please say aye.
Aye.
Thanks.
But abstain. I don't want to approve.
Okay. Okay, so, elections, as you see on the, under my report, it says elections. My second term ends at the end of December, so start thinking about, yeah.
Jeez.
My second term of chair, not my second term as a
Oh,
board
okay.
member. And I can only be chair for 2 years, so start thinking, you need to really start thinking about who you might think. And I will say that these have been the longest 2 years of my life, as well as the shortest 2 years of my life. I haven't really, between COVID and baby boy and everything else, it's been a very interesting 2 years. But just keep that stuff in mind.
In terms of the vice chair, since Cliff is.
Yeah, and the vice chair as well, because Cliff's second full term on the board ends in December. So unfortunately, he will have to leave the board after the end of December, and we will very much miss him and hope that he comes to our meetings anyway as a
I'll come to you.
community participant.
If y'all need me to stay over for a little while until you find a replacement for me.
Well, I don't know
I
if you're
know,
allowed
you
to
know.
do that, but we will find out.
You have to get prior approval, I think, from the council. They have to do it with Diane.
Okay, well, I will reach out to,
But I will be
you're at
able,
large, correct?
Now, why is it? Because he's done, it'll be the end of his 2 years?
His,
Or
at
2
the
years?
end of his 2 3-year terms. So you can serve 2 3-year terms on the board.
2
3-year
3-year
terms.
terms, okay.
If you were appointed in the middle of a term, that does not count as your first term.
Which I think that's what happened to
I
me.
mean, I have a list, and
Okay.
Yeah, that's
actually,
what happens to most people.
Yeah, I don't-
They come in the middle
6
of.
years, I put 6 years in there.
And why are you checking with the common council,
If-
Lori?
because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send the 4 counselors at large an email that says,
No, I didn't mean why are you doing it? I meant why you are doing it. Can you also check with, because now that Joe Driscoll is no longer
Yeah, it
over
doesn't matter. You're still in until your terms are over,
Okay.
what happened? You stepped down?
unless
He got
the
the
new
other
one, he got a new
position.
job.
Oh,
He got 81.
Look at him. He-
Where you been? They did an interview with his
He doesn't know
replacement.
Michael.
I'm
He
just
doesn't know
joking, but they
Michelle
did an
Driscoll.
interview
He doesn't-
with his replacement on TV.
What, is it Jim? Is his name Jimmy?
oh yeah, that's right. He took the 81 chair position or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
And Alfonso Davis
Like I really knew that.
is upset about
Right.
the replacement.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
So that's
I
the
would- I
deal
would.
on that. The brochure, I kind of worked on it a little bit. I don't know, Michael didn't realize what I was doing, but when I was sitting over at Southwest, and I thought I brought it with me, but I didn't. But my idea in my head is the trifold on the front, leave it basically the same as it is now, only with the new place. If we put a picture, put the new place on it. If we don't, just put the address. So it's really like the front of the card that we hand out. The second page being the back of the card we hand out, which is just know your rights. Then the middle part, doing whatever we can from the flyer. You know, just
Gotcha.
kind of shrinking it down, I think might work, or just pulling out of the flyer. And then there's not, 20 pages of how we were formed and why we were formed. And if people really want to know that, they can find that out. I think that the most important stuff to get out there is how to get a hold of us, why you get a hold of us, and what you do if you're stopped by the police. I think they're really the most important. I mean, if anybody disagrees, feel free, because I don't have a problem with anybody disagreeing, for sure. And then the back, which kind of leads into the next part, is the QR code. So there are free web pages to develop a QR code for your business / whatever. And my nephew wrote all this down for me. So you first upload whatever form, make sure that the form that they need to fill out is uploaded to the web page. Create the QR code. He said there's a ton of sites to choose from. They're all really easy. You export the image from the webpage to the QR code, and then you just use it on whatever media, flyers, anything that you want to get people. They just do the QR code, it goes, and then it opens up the form and they can file it and hopefully file it online and not have to print it. And so, I know none of this is something we can do like this week, just because, we're moving and.
But we're getting, I'll talk about the interns, we're getting some interns.
Oh, okay. But, we're moving, so, I guess we do have the address, so that's not a big deal. And I'm not sure, I'm sure we have to go through some hoops to get the form uploadable to a QR code from the city.
No, that just would be me putting it on the website.
Okay.
So now that we'll have an intern, we'll talk about the intern's ability
Okay,
to
that'd be
put it
great.
up on the website.
Cool. So that's all the stuff with that. If you have any questions, I'll try and answer them. Or
Send
Jose
you.
can answer them. He seems to know a little bit more about QR codes than I do. Yes. What's a QR code?
No, I know what
Oh,
a QR code is. Believe me, I
Sorry.
wasn't gonna ask you about no QR code. Just a couple of things.
Yeah.
So it has been confirmed that the office is moving,
Yes.
and it's moving in that building.
One Park Place?
Is that the building that Hare Fire and Coon is now in?
No, it's a building that's right across, that's diagonal from the sheriff's office, and that park that's right over there. Not Foreman Park.
Fireman. Is that the Fireman's Park? Is that the Fireman's Park?
The Barclay building? The building that says
No.
Barclay on?
No.
It's right behind the old telephone company. It's right behind this building right there. It's
on the
literally right
corner of
behind it.
Park and State? Is it State?
Is it next to where the land bank used to be at, or the land bank was?
Thank you. It's on State.
Park and South State Street.
Parking South.
It's on the corner
The only
of
one I
State
know,
and Fayette?
DeFrancisco's law office used to be in there.
It used to be where Social Security hearings were held. Right?
Not
And
when I went there. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. And then my other question is, so when are we moving?
That I don't know. I
But
don't
that
know.
wasn't my
Is there a
other
date? I mean, they said the end of September.
By the end of the year.
Yeah, so.
Oh, by the
definitely
end of the year. Okay, I thought you said we was moving this week.
No, I'm sorry,
Oh.
no.
And my other question was, is the recording going right now?
It is.
Okay, so last month, I wasn't here because I got, the reason that I told you. The only person that I watched it, the only person that you could hear during that meeting was Raynette.
Okay.
Because she was speaking directly into it's either because the mic is right in front of her, or because of the sound of her voice. But just an
Okay.
FYI,
No, that's
you
great,
couldn't
I'm
hear
glad.
nothing May Carter was saying, just to
People
let
have
you know.
complained before that we weren't loud enough as well. So I'm glad you watched it and you could
Yeah, I watched it.
let us know that.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So everybody remember to speak into the microphones. Last but certainly not least was yesterday was the Police Liaison Committee quarterly meeting. It was a good meeting. It was a long meeting. There were a lot of people at the meeting. There were a lot of SPD people at that meeting, and they were very nice. Some of the things that we talked about that I wanted to touch on were, I don't even know what that means, but we've been getting actual compliments. Renette's been getting calls from people complimenting the police officers for some different things that they've done when they've interacted with the public, and we'd like to be able to also, in addition to having, how do you file a complaint, somewhere, if you have something positive to say, so that people know that they can call us for that too, and it's not just for complaints. We had a really long talk about discipline, and I learned some stuff, and I had some conversation with Officer Potts. Is he a sergeant? Sergeant Potts, who is a union rep for SPD. And any recommendation that we make to the chief for any kind of intervention, so let's put it that way, is considered discipline. So what I was trying to explain to him was that, in all the years that I did union stuff, a verbal warning or a verbal reprimand did not go in your personnel file. It was not considered discipline. It was really just a conversation between a person and their supervisor saying, this wasn't really the way you should have handled that. Let's try a different way next time. Well, that's not the case with SPD. So they explained how it turns into the process that it turns into. And so a lot of times I think that when we recommend a verbal counseling for an officer, it's way too much in their line of discipline for the quote-unquote offense. And we were thinking it was like the least thing that could happen when we made that recommendation. So we do need to at least take that into consideration when we're making recommendations after a hearing, and realizing that short of, could you say this at roll call, or could the sergeant have a conversation with this officer about this incident, that anything else is discipline. And if we were not meaning to really discipline an officer, but rather just to correct their behavior, that we need to come up with different terminology for that. I mean, certainly, if we want to discipline, we're going to recommend discipline. I mean, that's not changed, but just in a mindset way.
They're gonna provide us with some clarification on other, what you would say, workarounds.
Yeah, they also said that they would put a group together to look at some suggestions on how they could accomplish what everyone wants to accomplish without violating their agreement and their rules. So we look forward to hearing from them about how they come up with.
We say that with the caveat, again, to reiterate the fact that when we recommend a verbal warning, it's because we do believe that the officer needs to have needs to be spoken to. We don't just recommend it for frivolous things either. But they were explaining to us that when the verbal reprimand does occur, the time frame that it takes for them to initiate the action and to call all the parties in to do it, we needed to be made aware of the time frame that it took the department to complete that discipline process. And again, not saying that we shouldn't by any means, but just letting us know the time. So just because we think that, okay, now the supervisor may just go speak to this person and say, hey, you know what I mean, next time use better judgment with this and that. It has a blue team that needs to be filed. Now they have to interview the officer. Now they have to interview any additional person that may have been there. They're going to have their union rep in there. You know what I mean? So it's just to explain to us the process. Not saying that we shouldn't still recommend that.
Correct.
Just understanding the process that it takes, and it's just not just a sergeant on its own with this officer, but other people are now in play.
How long does the process take right now?
So they're saying that it takes about 5 hours worth of time to initiate the discipline for a
That's
verbal
just to
warning.
initiate it. And then after that, you get and a lot of it has to do with the paperwork that has to be done, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's not, and then calling people, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted people to be mindful that it is considered discipline, and it is the lowest form of discipline, and it does lead to further, which is, which is what we want. We want someone to be able to be on the low end, and if they had never been in trouble before and it was not that egregious an offense, we certainly don't want to fire them for that. But if they've had 15 of these, then we might have a different opinion.
Absolutely.
So, the other stuff that came up, we talked about body-worn camera footage and people not turning on their body-worn camera. And that's come up several times in investigations, that the camera wasn't on for the whole incident, or it wasn't on at all, or whatever. And it's easier for us to track it now because Raynette requests from SPD when the person was issued a body-worn camera and when they were trained. Because we still have some, I don't know if we have any outstanding right now, we might have a couple of outstanding cases that not everyone had body-worn camera yet. So sometimes you don't know when you're initially looking at something if it's because they didn't have one or because they didn't turn it on. The good news is that there is now a program that they're using that's an electronic tracking of body-worn camera footage. So we can request and get that as well as the body-worn camera footage if we think that someone didn't have it on for the,
It's a way for
Right,
them
it's
to
not.
track the number, so say if an officer went on 15 calls, right? And the time frame that they look at how long this officer was out on a particular call and things of that nature, and it seemed like they were out there for 2 hours. And the body worn camera footage only shows 15 minutes. Seems like something's missing there. You know what I mean? So it was, other than, because prior to this point, SPD was supposed to have a sergeant periodically reviewing people's body worn camera to see whether or not they were utilizing it and things of that nature. Not saying that that's still not happening, but this is going to give them an alert about an officer who has shortened body worn camera time when incidents should be longer. You know what I mean? Because they tell you when an officer is cleared off of a scene, you know, and things of that nature is how they kind of put things in the system. So it's going to help them to be able to see those things. Where, again, we also asked about, is there a disciplinary action that occurs when an officer does not turn on their body worn camera and things of that nature? And they state that yes, there is. Because based upon the policy, it does state that you are supposed to turn it on prior to engagement.
Did they, reiterate on what that discipline?
No.
and I'm sure it has to do with how many times. I mean, if this is your first time versus your third time, it would hopefully be different discipline.
Yeah.
But we can certainly
Because
ask
it's
about
very
that.
important for the individual person that they're dealing with, as well as the officer's position, to make sure. And they went through the full procedure during the training, right? So they know that that camera should be on, you know, when an officer isn't engaged in a situation. So, you know, that's something that should be addressed, something that
We
that
make
should be
notation of it when we see it and things of
Absolutely,
that
I
nature,
know.
so,
I-
you know, we'll continue to do that, but we also wanted them to be aware that we are seeing, and we want you to
To do something about it.
do something about it.
Please, take some action.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So yes, I agree that we want them to do something about it, but based on something that I heard or somewhere I was, I don't remember exactly, they're not gonna necessarily tell us what the disciplinary action
They won't
has
tell
been
us,
taken against the officer.
correct. They won't
Right.
tell us,
so when we request their disciplinary records, if they're
Right.
involved in a complaint, we'll get to see
Okay.
what their disciplinary record is.
For
Which
not
we-
having their BWC on.
Yeah.
for whatever.
Yeah, for
for their
whatever.
entire disciplinary history
Okay,
comes to us when we request it.
okay.
Who is the current oversight over that, like the footage, like not being completely?
So their system through Axon, who is where they get their body worn camera from, that's the system that has the alert mechanism that they pay.
So it's not anybody in SPD.
So
It's,
who makes the judge, like just pretty much the determination as to which should be the
Discipline?
discipline for that?
It's gonna be that person's sergeant. It's gonna go up the ranks, just like when you look at our files. You can see when discipline is initiated, you can see the recommendation for it and how it goes up through all the bureau chiefs. So it's gonna be the same sort of action. The current sergeant may say, hey, this needs to be a verbal reprimand, and then another chief, you know what I mean, a chief reviewing it may say, no, this needs to be a written warning because he already had one, or maybe whatever the situation was would lead to.
there's like 3 or 4 people that review.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
but it's right there
So
in
it's
the.
not one person's decision for
Yeah,
All right, that's good.
all of it.
Good to know.
In addition to that, if we were to get request and get a copy of this tracking, just so everybody knows and doesn't go crazy when it happens, is there are certain things that need to be redacted from some of the body worn camera footage. And I think we've all seen examples of that. You know, it depends. Sometimes it's because of the victim. It's sometimes because of people in the background. Sometimes it's because it's an ongoing investigation, and part of that body worn camera footage would do something to harm that investigation.
But we made sure to request that they indicate that
Yes.
there should be some sort of memo that said portions of this body worn camera have been redacted for XYZ reason.
Right, and this is why.
You just don't
So,
want to
right.
receive body worn camera footage that's redacted with no explanation.
And the bottom line is, there's really only a couple of reasons for it to be redacted, so,
But we
it
just
shouldn't
want
happen that
acknowledgement,
often.
so that we
Right.
just have it, so that we know. So,
It is, we are able to do ride-alongs again, so if anybody wants to go on a ride-along, please reach out to Matt Malinowski and just let him know that you're on the board and you were told by the chief that ride-alongs are again in place and you can do a nice little ride-along. And the caveat from the law department is you are not to involve yourself in any of the, in any of the cases. I mean, don't get out of the car and start chasing people. And, you know. You are not a police officer just because you are on a ride-along.
Ask the officers to do the real, you know, actual, like they
Oh,
would
yeah,
normally
they're-
do if we weren't there,
Oh, exactly.
you know.
Good luck with that.
No, I think they have. Renette had a really good experience when she went.
Mine's was a little different.
Yeah, yours was, but I think they probably knew who you were more than they knew who she was. The only other thing that we really talked about at that meeting yesterday was, we've been having some conversations about the racial profiling question on the complaint form, because it really just says, do you think this was racial profiling? And then it's, if so, why? And most of the time, people of color who are filing a complaint will say yes, and when asked why, many times it's because the officer was white and I'm black. So we've had conversations about changing the language on the form so people understand what racial profiling is. So we did talk yesterday about there is a definition of racial profiling on the city webpage, which is what SPD uses for their forms when it comes to racial profiling. So we're going to take a look at that and most likely use that as, on our form, as did anything in the following occur? Just to, usually what happens is in the case of someone who just put yes because they're of color, ends up in a conversation saying, yeah, no, it wasn't racial profiling after all, you know, after the conversation. So we just want to make sure that if we're looking at racial profiling, that we're really looking at racial profiling and deal with that.
and it's the city of Syracuse definition
Yes.
of racial profiling, and so I'll share it with everybody, but that's what it is, and that's what the Office of Professional Standards reads to the person when they are interviewing them about their allegation of racial
I
profiling.
have a question. Is the question still gonna be in the same order in the
Yep, it's
form?
still gonna be in the same order.
I mean, this is just me thinking out loud as far as like, wouldn't the question make more sense at the top of the order just to get that person before they start initially filling out the form, thinking about whether it is? Because once they start going in, you know, and then they get to that at the end, they're already going based off their initial
No, 'cause
perception
it's-
of what racial profiling is.
When the complaint, the way the complaint form is set up, you have to provide your scenario of the incident
Okay.
first. And then after you provide your scenario of the incident, the very next question is that. So you get what I'm saying? Most of the time, racial profiling is not the dominant allegation.
Okay.
It's something else. So with that being said, it doesn't need to be like right after your name, your address and things of that nature, because it's not gonna mesh well, first of all. But then two, we need them to write the scenario And then it asks whether or not there were racial epithets, you know what I mean, things of that nature. So it does give some clarifying. So they usually indicate, no, they didn't call me any names or anything of that nature. So right there, it should kind of give it to you. But they're still indicating that it's because I was black and the officer was white. So we'll put the definition before it, and then that series of questions will be next. Because they still check yes and then say, no, there was no racial epithets. You know what I mean? No name, you know what I mean? So it's still like they're still not getting the definition of it.
That's gonna be interesting, because even if the officer didn't use any racial terms, he can still,
Right, but that's what I'm saying, but typically.
But that would be the complaint then. I mean, I think that's the
the-
difference.
right.
If you are filing a complaint about use of force, you can then answer the question, yes, I believe that the force was used because he was racially profiling me and this is why or how.
Or I feel that because of the color of my skin, his force was unreasonable, and it was because of that, but that's not what they're saying. You get what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I
that's why we.
understand.
What'll
need to
happen is,
kind of
and you've seen the complaints, I mean, you get the whole complaint and nowhere in the entire complaint
have
Does
they
it say
alleged.
anything
does it
about
say anything about
racial? Yeah,
racial.
that's what I mean though. Like if you
And
go
then at
into
the end,
it,
it's yes.
If you go into it either understanding whether you were racially discriminated against or not racially discriminated against, your story is going to be different. But if you go into it and you just writing your story,
But-
and then at the end you get asked like, okay, now you're not going to go back and change your whole
But
story to make it sound
No.
racially
But the
like.
point is that if you feel that the reason why you were stopped was racially motivated from the beginning, that should be in your scenario. It shouldn't take
Yes.
me to ask you whether or not you think this was racial profiling for you to now determine, oh, yes, it was.
Right.
You should feel that straight from the beginning. There were 4 black males riding in the car, or there was, you know what I mean, X, Y, Z, and this is why I feel like, you know what I mean? That should be right there in your scenario. So for it to not be listed, and then only because it's asked, does it now jar your perception that maybe it was? That's also a concern.
Yeah,
Well, and the form is not the only resource. I mean,
Tricky.
the person fills out the form and then Renette interviews them.
Right.
So, for
okay.
example, I was with her in an interview and the young man said, yes, it was definitely racial profiling. And Renette said, okay, did they call you any names? No. Do you think they treated you any differently because you were black? No. Do you think they did this because you were black? No. Well,
So
why
where's the
is
racial-
this racial profiling?
it just leaves me.
So you have that conversation.
I understand.
During the interview, which will bring it out if it really was.
I get
Clarify
that.
it.
And all I'm saying is that when I read a lot of the, like you guys alluded to, when you read the initial complaint, there's nothing about the whole, like, racially anything, but then you see that box checked off.
Right.
And it makes you wonder, like, okay, well, is this story, like, it makes you kind of, it leaves, like, a lot of gray area for you to wonder whether the story
Right.
is, whether they're filing the complaint because they felt like it was a racial issue, or because this, or what happened was really truly injustice against the individual. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways to think about it, but I think, like, in my mind, when I think about if I'm saying that I was pulled over and it was because of my race, that's going to be the first things that I'm listing at the beginning of the complaint. I don't need somebody to ask me whether or not it was racially, you know what I mean? If I think that
Absolutely.
it is,
Yeah.
I would believe
Makes
that
sense.
up front. But I get exactly what you're saying. And that's the reason why I ask those additional questions, so that we know, because sometimes even in the front part, they'll say, oh yeah, he did call me X, Y, Z. Okay, well, you gotta put it there.
You forgot to mention
You know what
that
I
part.
mean? Like, that kind of thing. So we do have this kind of conversation to try to figure out, and that's essentially what OPS is saying that they're doing as well, is trying to figure out, okay, is this really it, or are you checking this box later without, you know what I mean, really thinking
Assessing
this-
that,
You know what I mean, assessing it, and it's only because it's there now.
Yeah, okay.
And they said, they asked whether or not the question needed to be there, and I said, yes, the question needs to be there, because we
Yeah,
need
for
to
sure.
know whether or not, you know, that is an allegation and that is an issue. So we can't just not have the question.
Absolutely.
No, I would never disagree with the question not being on the form, because I feel like it's definitely
does.
one of the most important questions.
Yep.
But, I just was wondering whether the order made sense with, you know, with the update that you guys were planning on doing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll figure out if the numbers do have to be changed. I'm not saying that we can't look at that. I just think that if you think it's excessive force, you're gonna talk about your excessive force, and if you think it's racial profiling, you should talk about that initially in your description as well.
I just got one question.
Yep.
The additional questions to follow through to see if it is racially motivated or not. Do you ask those complainants who check no? Or you only specifically ask those additional questions for those who check yes?
So I will ask them, I say, you know what I mean, I see that you checked no at the time of, you know what I mean, your complaint that you filed with no racial profiling, you know what I mean? And I ask both, but then when you know what I mean, when I'm trying to get them to explain and all they put down there is, oh, because the officer was white and I'm black, that's when I'm asking those additional questions, because I'm trying to pull some more out of it to see exactly what that means. And
I think
why
that's really
it's-
good that you do either way.
Yeah.
Even if the question was there or not, and with ops, it's still satisfied because I'm still going to investigate thoroughly, and that's a good way for the public to know that we do take this serious and we want to make sure that everything
Yeah.
is looked at thoroughly. And
Right, because and I think that's the reason why the additional question after that is, even if they check no, it says, were there any racial epithets or anything of that nature, it's still on there, just in case you happen to not mark that box.
Right.
So,
The other thing is the Civilian Academy is, well, Citizens Academy, I guess now. Syracuse Citizens Academy is starting September 13th. It runs through November 1st. It's once a week on Tuesday from 6 to 8 at the SPD.
what states again?
September 13th through November 1st, Tuesdays.
It's really good.
Many of us have been through it. It
Recommend it.
really is a really good thing for people, especially on this board, to go through.
I recommend it.
You learn a lot. And I kind of liked it better when they did 3 nights in 1 week as opposed to 1 a week for a lot of weeks. But, yeah, what did we do? We did three nights at 3 hours each or something.
yeah, 3
It
to
was
4
long,
hours, something.
but it certainly,
So it's in the
It's-
police building, it's in
yeah,
Yeah.
in their offices, their training section, their training offices,
and what, do you know what the times are?
6 to 8.
6 to 8. September 13th through November the 1st, 6 to 8 p.m.
You have to attend every session?
If you got something to do, you know, you might be able to, you know what I
If you're
mean?
interested, let me know and I'll give you the email.
You can always let them
for
know.
it.
You can't make it. Or if you can't stay the full time, you know, some people will come. If they couldn't stay the full time, they'll let the sergeant know ahead of time. And if you got something to do, you know, that next week, you let the sergeant know ahead of time.
Can you make it up? I mean, will they meet with you to make that session up or no?
No, you can't make up the
Okay.
session, because they, you know, it's just.
Yeah, I just didn't
It's
know.
like an informative thing, right?
Yeah, they're gonna talk about Syracuse Police Department operations, criminal procedure law, use of force, criminal investigations, and interactive scene scenarios.
It's really, really good, you know, and they put you in those scenarios of action,
And it's from
and you're
September
not ready
13th
for
to
it,
when?
right?
It just says that through, does it have a date for November?
September 13th through November 1st,
Okay.
6 o'clock p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m.
You can send me the email on that, Renee.
Okay.
I'm
I recommend that,
interested in
though.
it.
Really, really good, especially the scenario situations that they put you in, takes you inside when an officer has to make that decision. And
Well, now they have those virtual
It's
reality
serious.
things too.
you're totally caught off guard, right? So check it out, you know, it's really good.
Cynthia,
really
I think
good,
it probably
um,
won't snow before then.
That's why I asked her until when, because if it starts snowing, I might take an Uber, who knows?
It's a thought. Well, if you sign up and it snows, you let us know and someone will come get you.
Okay,
What's the time? again?
Might make it be my nephew, but somebody will come get you.
thank you.
You're welcome. And, all right, I can stop talking now.
So August, we received 8 new complaints. So far, we have a total of 35 new cases. We're gonna review 5 cases in executive session. We have been approached by 2 SU students in the political science department who we continue to get interns from. And they will be interviewed next week about their potential internship with the office. We just received the okay to hire the, well, the positions have been approved by the county for us to hire the data analysis and for us to hire the community engagement specialist. So we will be working expeditiously to get those positions filled, hopefully by the end of the month, no later than the first part of October, so that by the time we move into the new place, we will have all 3 new, we'll have 3 new staff members, including myself. The city is aware of our staffing needs and are supposed to make sure that when we move into the other place, we have accommodating space for our 2 additional staff members. That space is supposed to hopefully include as well a conference room so that we can hold our hearings in. We are potentially going to be on the first floor so that when people come in, we will be right in the same area, so that they don't have to go upstairs at all. It'll be right there in the main area. The Office of Professional Standards will also be on that same floor. And also the permit department, you know what I mean, similar to what, you know what I mean, is down there now. So they'll have that on the first floor as well. So frequently places where you would say people are going in and out of, which would be our office and permits, are going to be centrally located on the first floor for safety reasons and things of that nature. As the safety precautions that have been in place, where they typically would call up to our office, as long as the right security staff is on, they call up to our office and let us know that somebody is here to see the CRB. So 1, when we're out at community engagement events, a person is not coming upstairs to an empty office, but 2, to make sure that we are available at the time. And so that we are aware that certain people are coming upstairs. And so that will, us being on the first floor will kind of alleviate some of that, but it's not to say that they still wouldn't call down to our office to make sure that somebody is in the office, because typically when we leave, we still have to exit that place, but the next time, the next person for that shift may not be there when we exit it.
Right.
So they're still gonna call the office to see whether or not somebody is there.
Are these positions full-time or part-time?
All of the positions are full-time. Training. So there is a virtual option for the force science training that we talked about, and there is a virtual option for the NACO conference that we talked about as well. So the plan is to do virtual, which is cheaper, but is also safer given the fact that we keep having these rises, and where they were going to hold the annual conference was in a state that they could not mandate masks. So therefore I wasn't feeling as comfortable attending without a mandatory mask mandate, given the number of people that are going to be coming in from all across the nation, coming there. So that is my report.
Okay. Community outreach and public education. Do you have papers with you for people to sign up, or is it just the ones online, or?
It's the one that we have been continuously sharing with everyone.
Okay.
And so we will, continue to do that. The only other thing was, I wanted to mention when we're talking about, community engagement, I will mention hearings. If you have not responded to an email from Michael, right there. If you have not responded to an email from Michael, providing him with your hearing availability. If you look in your folder, you will see this nice yellow piece of paper. That is what he has prepared as to what you have advised him is your hearing availability. So if you don't see your name on that sheet. Please, ma'am, please, sir, make sure your name gets on that sheet. But we really need to schedule some hearings. We're reviewing cases tonight, and we have other ones that need to be scheduled. We have not been able to schedule hearings because we have not had enough availability. So please, ma'am, please, sir, respond to Michael with your availability because we need to get cases done.
I think you're preaching to the choir, if I'm looking correctly.
Okay?
Everyone here has responded.
All right.
What does that mean, preaching to the choir?
It means that the people that are in the room currently have already responded.
Okay.
But I want you to look at the list.
I
And
looked
make
at
sure,
it.
no, what I'm saying is I
Make sure
want you
it's
to
right.
look at the list and make sure that it is correct as well. So that then when we utilize this to schedule you for a hearing, you do not come back and say,
I'm not available.
I'm not available. Because we're gonna say, well, on this list, you advised that you were available. So I'm just making sure.
But you have to make room for emergencies as well.
If it's an emergency, that's one thing. But just to say that this is what we're working with, it's right here. Double-sided paper. What we're working with to schedule hearings. Okay, all right.
Do we get to keep a copy of this?
Yep, that's why it's in your folder, that's why it's yellow. Put it on your refrigerator. Put it in your calendar as to what you stated for this month was your availability. Anybody don't have a copy of it?
Got my name out
Anybody,
there.
anybody? Anybody need a copy?
Got it.
Okay. Oh, I forgot to go over the budget real quick. Budget was the green paper. Don't confuse it with the yellow paper. Green always means money. That is your budgetary information right there for what we have left in the budget to spend for the rest of the fiscal year, not given things that need to be paid. But if you notice, our fiscal budget has increased tremendously, it hasn't increased tremendously, it's just because we have 2 more staff people to be up there on that staffing line.
Right.
But past that point, I don't want it to seem like we don't still need some more money. So.
Still
just
need
make
some
sure
more
we-
cash.
Yeah, really.
Please.
Make
if
sure we
you
put
would.
it there.
Help us out.
All right, Lori, did you want to talk about that training that you did, the virtual?
No, I haven't really finished it yet.
Okay, all right. So we had policing regulations and oversight trends, problems and solutions training, and it was very informative. We do have a copy of the video. Nope, that's something else. We do have a copy of a video if someone wants to have a copy of the video.
I was gonna say I have it.
We can utilize it and share it, but it was very informative as to what is believed to be trends that are coming in the future as it relates to oversight and how the laws and unions and all of that kind of stuff kind of play a part in it. It's very informative, so I would encourage
It's only
you-
an hour.
It's only an hour. So I encourage you to try to get it. It is part of it would be considered part of your regular training. So I encourage you to,
Where is it?
it's in an email, so we can email it to you.
Oh, okay, please. Yeah. Absolutely. Sign me up.
Government relations, we are working to schedule a large meeting with I think it's scheduled for sometime in September. I think it's at the end of September. We're looking to schedule a meeting with Corporation Counsel, with
Ryan would be there.
with Ryan, with the police department on some issues that we are continuing to work through. Some of them had to do with, one, our question as to whether or not we should be including the officers' names in our findings letters when we send them to the complainant, because right now we continue to use Officer 1, 2, and 3, and whether or not that is legislative, in terms of if it's in our legislation for us to use 1 and 2, or if we can utilize that. So as of right now, we still need to schedule that, but I do believe it may be sometime in September. If you are on that government relations group. I will make sure that you have a copy of that, invite so that you are aware of the meeting. But I think it's sometime in September. I think it might be late September, but I'll make sure you have it. Oh, just so you, yeah, that's about it. I'll be speaking with the cadets coming up. I'll be speaking with the cadets on September the 6th. Just so you know, we were asked whether or not we had some interest in speaking with the cadets.
How long have I been trying to? How long have I been trying to?
It's at time of your work.
I'll take that time off.
So we are scheduled to meet with them at 10 o'clock in the morning on,
Easy.
September the 6th.
Will I get a chance to say something? I'm gonna keep it within the context of, protocols and everything.
And I'm just gonna say that if she tells you to stop talking, that you need to stop
She just
talking.
have to give me that look.
Okay.
When she gives me that look, like, she know, me and her know, no words need to be said. She just gives me that look like,
All right,
and I know, to slide over this way a little
so
bit.
you see
what
where
I'm
it
about
is,
to
right?
say.
And what time?
I'll let you know where it is and the time that it is, but
September
it's
6th?
September the 6th at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. I'm putting it in the calendar right now.
It's right there.
I thought she said where it was. Did she send it in the mail?
At the public safety
Send an
building?
email today.
Yeah, but I thought she said it was in there, where it was. It was in-
Oh, it is. It's in the email. I just didn't
Oh,
put it
okay.
on the agenda.
Gotcha, okay,
Okay,
yep.
all right.
And the next police liaison committee is November 30th at 10:30. And they are checking a couple of things for us, and hopefully they'll have answers before that, because one of the things that they're checking is the officer complaint, the officer's name in the complaint letter response. So
Yes.
hopefully they'll tell us that at the government relations and not wait until the end of November to let us know the answer to that question.
All right. Yes,
I
But
don't.
you done with your thing?
yes.
I just have a couple of questions in regards to, which I think Michael and I already talked about it. But, the events that we do, the outreach events that we do, the one for Westmoreland Park got canceled. Well, I didn't attend because of the one that was for the HIV was done on the same day. Okay, so I guess my question is, Lori, when we have events, when we have outreach events in the CRB is scheduled to be there, do we bring our own stuff or how does that work?
Well, that's the reason why you requested, 2 different banners. So we have 2 separate banners, so we can be at 2 different outreach events. And in terms of the setup, we would, if they are not providing tables, or even if they are providing tables, yes, if you're coming you are coming to that event, setup might be your responsibility.
Okay,
So,
I think
and
that each-
especially when we have 2 separate events
Right.
going on. There's no way a person should have to go set up this event and then go set up this other event, because then they're gonna be,
Like, for example, the Westmoreland event that was canceled, Raynette was, either Raynette or Michael was gonna come over with a table and chairs for you. But
well,
then,
that's not what Michael told me, that's why I
well,
said
Raynette
that.
and I had talked about it, but
Okay, well,
then,
I
it got
wasn't in the midst
canceled,
of the conversation, so I didn't know.
but it got canceled.
Okay.
but it
I
got
did tell
canceled.
you that you did not have to set up at Westmoreland.
Exactly.
Correct.
But I did not know that somebody discussed that you or Raynette was gonna come and set it up, or I would've went.
But
Well, it was canceled.
Canceled, so therefore.
Oh, the
there-
whole event was canceled?
Yes, because of the weather, and then it was rescheduled for another
No,
day.
that's HIV. That's the one I saw.
The Westmoreland was HIV, wasn't it? Wasn't that the
Yes.
same? Yeah,
Yeah, Westmoreland was HIV.
yeah.
Okay, the one that was scheduled for South Ave,
Okay, that was the one that was supposed to
That got
be
canceled.
at Salina Street, wasn't it, 404 Salina? Was that the one that got canceled? I don't even remember.
I thought the HIV event was at Westmoreland Park, and then the South Ave, or no, the South Ave event was the HIV event, and that's the one that I did go to. That one was like 11:30 to 3:30. The Westmoreland Park event started like 1 to 3, and there wasn't anyone available to do setup. So it was just me at the one event already. I got there at 11:30, and then, so I couldn't leave it, go back to the office and get more chairs and
Correct.
tables.
I understand that, yes, okay.
But
Now
what
I
I'm
understand.
saying is the one that Michael did attend, that's the one that got rescheduled to that date.
Yes.
It wasn't
Right.
initially for that date.
Correct.
Right,
Okay.
but when we are scheduling these outreach events and the materials that we are providing to you, it's not that heavy that it's just a couple of brochures. We're not setting up a table as if it was like we were going to, the Westcott Cultural Festival. Like, we're giving you some brochures, some magnets, some pocket cards and things of that nature. You'll have a banner, you'll have some candy. Like, we're not expecting you to set up tables and chairs and things of that nature.
And that is what I did not know.
Okay,
So had I known that, I might have would have went to Westmoreland.
okay, well,
Okay, but I did not know that.
Okay, my advice to everyone is, if you are scheduled to do an event and you have any questions about that event, to call Rainette and find out if someone else is going to be there. Because a lot of times, like, you may say you're going to do an event, and I may be doing the same event, and we may not know we're doing the same event. So if you're going to sign up for an event, and the day of the event is coming, and you're really not sure what's going on, reach out to Michael or Rainette, and we'll clear it all up before. This was a little confusing because one got canceled, and then we couldn't get 2 setups and whatever, but just keep that in mind, everybody.
so the meeting with, Corporation Counsel's office is September 27th at 3 o'clock, Lori.
Not for me, it's not. Maybe it is.
Yeah, that's the day that they scheduled it for because it worked better with everybody's schedule. September 27th at 3 o'clock is the government relations meeting.
Nope.
If you are on that committee,
I will not be in town.
okay. If you are on that committee, then
me and Richard.
please make sure that you come to that event.
Hopefully you can be there.
September 27th at 3 o'clock. Okay.
There you go, that's a reminder. Yeah.
I don't see any community organizations here unless you would like to be a community organization, no? Do you have anything you want to talk about? Okay. Then I will take a motion to adjourn to
We're gonna hear from Michael.
executive session.
Motion.
And I second.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay. See y'all downstairs. Well, some of you. 2 of you won't be there.